Singapore 345, wind 250 degrees, 2 knots, runway 16, clear for takeoff.
Runway 16, clear for takeoff, Singapore 345.
So if you could just mute yourself for a few minutes. Thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying, we have about 180 years of total aviation experience lined up for you today. Myself, about 33 years. Captain Omar is about 32 years. And then we have Captain Crystal. She's about 30 years. Mr. Jayavant, he is about 28 years. Mehul Shukla, he's 30 years. And Amit, Mr. Amit Kharbanda, he's also 30 years. So if you add it up, it all comes to about 180 years of aviation experience. Quite a bit. But together, we all started together nearly 33 years back. And so we kind of have the same experience. So I spoke with a few of you yesterday, and what I understand is everybody's a little concerned about how aviation is being impacted by COVID. So we'll come to that, and let me start with first introducing myself. My name is Rajesh Naran. I'm a Airbus 330 captain and a trainer and a designated examiner. I've been flying jets since 1992, all sort of planes, 737, 200s, then 300, 400, 500, 700, 800, 900, and then the Airbus 330s. And I was with Jet Airways till they shut down. And then I joined Sri Lankan Airlines. And because of the pandemic, I have been put on long leave, which has been turned into, maybe termination very soon. But things will get better. And we will talk about it as we go along. Today, the first speaker that I have for you is Captain Omar Sikka. Now, Captain Omar Sikka is flying for a major airline, one of the biggest airlines in the world today, as a Boeing 777 captain. And he has actually just landed in Miami. He's done a long flight. I don't know how many hours it was, maybe about 12 hours or so. He'll tell you exactly. And he has actually stayed up, and he was very keen to speak with all of you. And in fact, I wasn't sure whether he will be up to it after such a long flight, but he assured me, and here he is. He's looking fresher than most of us, and I'm sure he's keen to speak to you all. So I leave the floor to Captain Omar. Captain Omar, please.
Hello, friends, and Rajesh. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to speak to aviation enthusiasts and, of course, aspiring people in the aviation industry. And before I introduce myself, I'd like to say that my biggest grouse with aviation today is that I am unable, or we are unable, to bring our the next generation into the cockpit and show them around. The main first thing that inspires everybody into aviation is when they get to see the cockpit. I'm unable to take my own children into the cockpit, which is a real shame. My name is Omar Sikka. I've been in aviation for 30 years. I fly for Turkish Airlines. It is one of the major carriers in the world. Before this, I was with Jet Airways, and I started my career in a private organization called East West Airlines. I was born into a middle-class family. My father was a pilot, a military pilot, and then he was a very senior pilot with Air India. So aviation was in my blood. I didn't actually have too much of a choice with the career path that I was supposed to choose. It was already chosen for me, but I'm very glad I took it because I've been interested in planes and anything concerning aviation ever since I was a little boy. I was a voracious reader. I had a particular affinity for design, aircraft design, and I used to build models, and I used to pride myself on knowing small technical design details of all the various fighter planes and passenger planes and transport aircrafts at that time. I have continued the passion, and I still look at design very keenly. Unfortunately, people only look at being a pilot in the prime light, but hopefully the next generation also looks at there are many careers involved with aviation. Many careers like engineering, system analysts, we have data crunchers, we have safety experts, we have risk analysis, and basically people who run the management side of aviation also. In my previous company in Jet Airways, I was fortunate enough to be given an opportunity to be in the management also. I spent about 10 years in safety, and then I spent a couple of years in the management side where I was running the Boeing fleet. It is a different skill set, but it is something that evolves from being a pilot. And as you go ahead being a pilot, you acquire certain skills which can take you through to other professions in life. And other professions also require to tap into the skill sets which you develop along as being a pilot. You're a good problem solver, you have great time management, and you basically decision making is your fortitude when you spend years and years of experience as a pilot. To talk about my career or careers of how to become a pilot, basic qualifications is a 12 standard pass in mathematics and physics, but I soon believe that they're going to be making a graduation with a science degree quite mandatory. Thereafter, your flying flight qualifications from a flying school or from an academy take about a year and a half, which basically involve you to attaining a commercial pilot's license. After that, getting a job placement with a major airline is the next goal, because then you need to train for that particular aircraft, to be qualified on that particular aircraft, to fly and gain some experience. Approximately 2,500, 3,000 hours is what a major carrier looks as a first officer to promote you as a captain. Thereafter, the world is a stage. You can move up from a captain's position to a trainer's position. From a trainer's position, you can hope to be a part of broader aspect of simulator training for young aspiring candidates as ab initios. At the top of my career in Jet Airways, I was an examiner, and I spent about over 15 years as a trainer. And that teaches you a different skill set altogether of teaching. But teaching is what everybody aspires to reach. And I'm sure all of you all also hope to reach the pinnacle of a career after a few years in the aviation field. Talking about the future in aviation, I see it's going through its cyclic phase. Yes, everybody is looking at the unemployment figures currently with aviation, and it is a matter of concern. But like all professions in the current scenario, aviation is also cyclic. So what goes down has to come up, and the growth in aviation is always going to rebound. And why I say that with so much confidence is because we're already seeing it. We're already seeing that people want to travel. Yes, with the post-pandemic, we are going to see business travel take a huge dent, because people are moving to online platforms like we have right now. But like the past, aviation and airlines will always adapt. Like we saw first class disappearing from the market about 10 to 15 years ago. The airlines adapted, they changed their business model, and got back to the growth phase. And they promoted other forms of travel, whether it is premium economy or it is airlines do innovate, and airlines have to do whatever is required to survive, and they overcame the first class deficit. Similarly, right now also, if business class travel does show a decline, which it will, a lot of indicators to show that business class will take a big dip in traffic. Airlines will adapt, they will innovate, and they will come up with certain measures to make sure that the growth resumes. Growth to resume to pre-COVID levels would take some time. Maybe by this year end, or maybe by the beginning of next summer, we will be seeing growth returning to pre-COVID levels, and airlines will start to grow again. So that's good news. In fact, good news being because everything is cyclic. Airlines will go back into their growth phase, so hiring will start, and hiring will come back to pre-COVID levels. All companies need to be in a growth phase to be profitable, and they always prefer to keep their workforce in a slight bit of deficit, because you rather pay people to work overtime than to pay people for just idling around. So there'll always be a shortage. The airlines like to keep them. Like to keep the shortages in engineers, pilots, manpower, workforce, in everything that is a highly trained commodity. And whenever you're in a highly trained commodity, you will always be in a deficit. So there will always be a requirement. Like the stock market, you get in when it's low. So there's always going to be a growth coming up. So to keep encouraging, to keep people motivated, and not look at the downside. Aviation is taking a hit, but all other industries all over the world are taking a hit. And it's only a matter of time that the recovery comes up. Well, if there's any questions which I can help you all with, I have a wealth of information. I have spent a lot of time in airline safety, a lot of time in airline management. I have a lot of experience as a pilot. I do travel the world, and I do see where the traffic moves from. India is a great success story, simply because the Indian aviation story is we have a organic traveling public. So we do not rely on any other country to provide passengers for us. We have a lot of domestic internal travel, and we have a lot of people who travel abroad. Indians are all over the world, and they always like to travel. Indians are the success story for the Middle East carriers. And the Middle East carriers are hurting today because the Indians aren't being able to fly. We are seeing the growth in Indigo already. I think their Indigo is up to 85% of pre-COVID levels growth. So that's just an indicator. I mean, things keep changing every month, but you all will see it yourself. If any of you all want to look at the statistics, DGCA releases statistics every month. So the organic growth in India is already back to 85%. I think the international travel is just waiting for a big player to step in and capitalize on the Indian growth to travel international. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to be of help.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Sindhu.
My name is Sindhu, sir. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So what is that one advice that you want to pass on to someone who wants to be a pilot?
Well, that's the first great logical advice asked from a senior person, and there's a lot of glamour attached with being a pilot. There's a lot of stereotypes which we hear about in the public or from hearsay from other people, and everybody thinks that it's just wearing uniform and traveling places and getting to fancy hotels and being all around the place. But like you asked a very valid question, it makes sense for any aspiring pilot or any person who's entering aviation is to understand what this whole profession is all about. It's a highly trained profession. It's something that you keep training for the rest of your career. So it never gets easy. Yes, there are easier phases when you start getting used to the job, and you get used to passing the testing fields, which happen every 3 months to 6 months. You get used to it. But there's never a time where you're allowed to go below standards. So if you think that you can ease off after about 5 years or 6 years into the job, and things are going to get easier as they proceed. That's not true. So be committed. You have to be committed to hard work, and the hard work just goes on increasing as you climb up the ladder. The hard work goes on increasing. Studying is very, very, very important. You do not need to be good at studies, but you need to be committed. You need to be committed. You need to put in that kind of dedication to make sure that you reach the level of proficiency that is required. So you don't need to be highly skilled, but you need to be committed. Yes, skill is something that you'll be trained for. You'll be trained to attain the skill that is required for proficiency, and you need to demonstrate that. You need to demonstrate that every 6 months. You need to pass exams every 1 year. You need to undergo checks which happen on a repeated basis, and that's because it is regulatory. This job is regulated by a government agency. They regulate the instructors and the checking airmen which check you. So everybody down the chain is regulated. So there's a lot of compliance. So compliance also has to be looked with different levels of people in the organization. So it is a complex answer for a very simple question. But if you show a little bit of dedication in your early years, I see no problem. It's a beautiful profession to be involved with. So Sindhu, I hope that answers a very broad question, and I hope to see you in this field very soon.
Yes, sir, definitely. And I had another question which I wanted to ask.
Sure.
So how long will it take to complete the type rating and the company trainings after CPL?
So after the CPL, which is your basic requirement for a commercial pilot's license, depending upon which aircraft you decide to do a type rating on, that can vary between 3 to 4 months at the minimum to much more than that, depending upon the availability of simulator, depending upon where the simulator is carried out, depending upon whether you do it with an airline, whether you do it with a ATO, or you do it with a different organization, and the recognized process through the DGCA, the regulatory authority, and your flight training. So getting the type rating does not require flight training, but any major airline will require you to do flight training and clear you online before they recognize your flight training and require you to work as first officer in that particular with that type rating. So to explain the type rating to people who may not be aware of what we're discussing, Ibanez, is that you have a basic CPL, a basic qualification of a commercial pilot's license. Now, commercial pilot's license allows you to function as pilot in command of a light aeroplane, but to fly a commercial jet or a commercial turboprop above a certain weight, you require to have that type rating put on your license. Now, a type rating to come on your license can come on as a first officer, as a P2 on your license, with simulator training and completing simulator checks after going through a video. But to move from a first officer's license type rating to a captain's type rating, you require to have a minimum number of hours, and then you need to do the training for a captain's rating. So just to do a basic type rating as a first officer, I would say, judging from about 3 months to in excess of 6 months, depending upon where and how you do. That answers the question.
Thank you, Captain.
Sindhu, all the
Thank
very
you,
best.
Captain Omar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Captain.
You brought up some very valuable points. I heard you say the best way to learn is to teach. Yes, that is true. And if you were to teach, you cannot stop learning. I'm sure you agree, and that is why you have to keep your standards up and never go below standard. And you said that one has to keep studying, We have our 6 monthly checks, and we have our medicals, and also we are tested on a daily basis. No, not thoroughly, thankfully, of course, but we are tested. Like in the sense, we are operating a machine with so many people on board. We cannot fail. For that, you need to be at your best. If you are trying to be at your best, well, you would be somewhere about 80%. Thank you very much, Captain Omar. Our Dean would like to say a few words to all of us, and it gives me great pleasure
Excuse
to
me,
invite
Captain.
him to. Yes, please. Go ahead.
I have two people who have raised their hands. I guess they have questions to
We
ask
Yeah, we just wait
Mr.
for
Omar.
our Dean to say a few words, and then we start. We can ask the questions. If you don't mind, Sindhu, is that
Sure,
okay?
sure. Thank you, sir. I kindly request Mr. Ian Ganesh, Dean of Engineering Department, to deliver the speech.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Now we can hear you.
Yeah. Thankful to all the resource persons who have come here to deliver their important views on opportunity in the aviation field. Thankful to the aviation department. Sorry for this delay. I'm not able to come inside. And please continue. And on behalf of the management,
Thank you, sir. Thank you for welcoming us. Thank you. Yes, Sindhu, you knew someone who wanted to ask some questions, so please they can go ahead and ask some questions.
Yes, so two people had raised their hands for questions. One is Joshua. Yes, Joshua, you can go ahead and ask the question.
Hello, sir. My name is Joshua. I'm studying in Srinivas University. I just had to ask a question. They say that being a pilot isn't all about the glamour, but then pilot has a lot of regulations, restrictions. They have to follow a proper lifestyle. So can you please tell me something about that? What is that restriction, regulation, and a lifestyle that pilot has to follow?
Omar, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Joshua, for the question. You're already traveling, so traveling is in your DNA. So I think you're fit for aviation. Uh, we talked about regulations. Yes, this is a highly regulated industry, so it has to be regulated because there's safety involved, and whenever there is safety involved, and it's a high-profile safety culture which needs to be adhered to, so it is highly regulated. So I guess your question is, what is the regulatory aspect of traveling, and apart from the glamour, um, if I've understood your question correctly, I think you're discussing
It
about
is.
what we need to be aware of when we are assigned a flight duty. So we all are aware that we are supposed to be mentally, physically capable at the time we accept an assignment for flights. So my preparation or our preparation starts when we get our roster and our assignment, when we are assigned a certain flight, we get assigned for the whole month or for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So depending upon the flight allocation, I start regulating my sleep patterns nearly 2 days before my flight, so that I can leave the house when I'm well rested. Yes, of course, it goes to show that there's no alcohol, there's no narcotics, or there's no inhibitory drugs which are taken before the flight, because that's the regulation. But like a long haul flight preparation starts maybe 2 days before the flight, because I have to regulate my sleep and get my sleep patterns in before my departure. Now, when we come outstation, it's very nice to think that you're in a fancy hotel in a exotic destination, but sleep and rest is my first priority. I'm first thinking about my next flight and coming back. So in the initial days, maybe I would have gone out and had a dinner, but I'd rather just pick up a burger on the way and make sure that I get my adequate rest before my next flight. It takes a lot of conditioning. Exercise helps a lot. My basic packing of the suitcase is my exercise gear, not my evening clothes out. So if I've understood your question correctly, regulation and regulating yourself and your physical and mental needs is more important than anything else. If I'm not well rested mentally or physically, I'm not going to be doing justice to my job. Yes, Joshua, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. That is my point. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. I think you're sitting in traffic right now, or you're already made it.
I'm going to my college.
Okay. All the best, Joshua. Good luck.
Thank you, Captain. We have another person who has a doubt. Arindam, you can go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Is there anybody else? I think Pavitra. Pavitra is ready. The hand is there.
I guess no more questions are there with any of the students for this time, I guess, sir. So I would like to thank Captain Omar for giving his real-time experience in the aviation industry to us, which will help us to make a very good way in our future in our aviation area. So I take my immense pleasure welcoming Amit Karbanda sir, who is a senior maintenance engineer with an experience of 20 years to share his few words and experience with us. Thank you.
Okay. Amit has logged in, but he's waiting for someone should admit him. So kindly I request the admin to please allow Mr. Amit Kharbanda to enter. I guess these things happen in Google and Zoom Meet, unlike in-person seminars where the person enters the room, then he doesn't leave. So I guess we'll have to wait for a few minutes to see that this technical issue is sorted out. And Joshua, good question you asked. Regulation, lifestyle, very good question. Pilot is regulated from all sides, actually, from his company regulations, the, the government regulations, the airspace that he flies in, those regulations. There are so many of them. And fitness, well, it's always good to be fit, isn't it? So that always helps. And here it carries the additional importance of your job depends on it. So one does take care of themselves. Most cases, of course.
So sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
Yes, sir. By the time
Right.
sir joins us, I want to ask us a question, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like we have DGCA exams to be cleared before we have to appear for the CPL exams right now, sir. So today it's been like many institutes have been formed around all over India for the training of PGC exams, which almost 70 to 80% of the institutes cost it costs very expensive to get these DGCA subjects done. So can a student clear or crack the DGCA exams by studying on his phone? Is it possible, sir? If yes, what are all the tips or advice do you want to give to those students?
Captain Omar, can you answer that?
I'm really sorry. Could you just repeat the question again? I was texting
Yes, sir.
my family. I just gotten after a long flight, so I was just reporting to see how they were. I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Could you repeat the question, please?
Like yes, sir, we have DGC exams to be cleared, sir, cleared now, sir, before getting a CPL license. So most of the institutes which is training to clear the DGC exams are very expensive. Like some students are not so affordable to like take the classes. Is it possible to clear or crack the DGC exams on our own? Like if yes, what are the tips or advice we want to give to those students?
Uh, Question banks are available now. Internet is available now. The wealth of information given to kids, I can't say kids, to the youth today is unfathomable in our times. You know, in our times, we used to steal notes, and I cleared. I've actually forgotten, but I cleared 2 exams on my own. It's possible. Of course, it's possible. It's anything is possible. People have been giving IIT exams on their own. It's not required that you have to go through a certain set classes to pass. People, we hear success stories everywhere. So it all depends upon you. You want to be the success story, you make it happen. You do not need to go through set classes. You don't have to go traveling all the way to Delhi, or you don't have to go traveling all the way to Calcutta to get that particular instructor who knows exactly what's going to come in the papers. It's the same answer that you would get for a HSC, CBSC examination. It helps because they have the question banks. It helps because they've been doing it so often. But for the people who can't afford it, people who can't afford it, or people who are disadvantaged in some way or the other, have got a great advantage. They have the motivation. They have the motivation to make it happen. Go through the question banks, go through the preparatory material, go through the study the documentation. Everything is, you don't even need to buy that Oxford book which costs X amount of money being sold at Sterling Book House because it is downloadable. I hope I can answer your question by saying the answer lies within you. If you want to put down and self-study, it's possible, right? It's possible.
Thank you so much, sir.